Marcus thought he was just a poor mechanic when the HOA tried to evict him from his old farmhouse. They forgot one important detail: his great-great-grandfather founded the entire town in 1847, making Marcus the legal hereditary governor with power to destroy them completely. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more HOA stories. Marcus Hartwell never thought much about his family history until the day the HOA tried to steal his land. He lived quietly in the old farmhouse where his great-great-grandfather had first settled in 1847, back when Hartwell Valley was nothing but empty wilderness and big dreams. Now the valley was full of million-dollar houses, golf courses, and people who thought money could buy anything, including the right to kick out the family that built the whole town. They were about to learn a very expensive lesson. Marcus was 34, single, and worked as a mechanic at the local auto shop. When his grandfather died and left him the old farmhouse on Founders Road, most people thought he was crazy to move there. "That old place," his cousin Danny had said, "it's a dump. Sell it and buy something normal." But Marcus loved the history. The house sat on 47 acres of rolling hills, with the original stone foundation his ancestor William Hartwell had laid by hand. There were old barns, fruit trees planted in the 1800s, and a family cemetery where 5 generations of Hartwells rested. The house needed work, sure. The paint was peeling, the roof leaked, and the heating system was older than disco music. But it was home. For 6 months, Marcus fixed what he could afford to fix and lived peacefully. He grew vegetables in his great-grandmother's garden, restored the old barn, and enjoyed having space to breathe. Then the lawyers showed up. Marcus was rebuilding the front porch when a black SUV pulled into his driveway. 3 people got out, 2 men in expensive suits and a woman who looked like she ate nails for breakfast. "Mr. Hartwell?" The woman stepped forward. "I'm Victoria Ashworth, president of the Hartwell Valley Estates Homeowners Association. These are my attorneys." Marcus set down his hammer. "I think there's been a mistake. I'm not part of any HOA." Victoria smiled like a shark. "Actually, you are. Your property was included in the HOA when we incorporated in 2019. You owe 3 years of back dues plus penalties." She handed him a thick envelope. "That's $47,000 in unpaid fees." Marcus stared at the papers. "This can't be legal. Nobody told me about joining any HOA." "Ignorance isn't an excuse," said one of the lawyers. "The incorporation notice was published in the legal section of the newspaper, as required by law." "I don't read the legal notices." "Not our problem," Victoria replied. "But that's not why we're here today. Your property is in violation of 17 different covenants." She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. Peeling paint, non-compliant roofing materials, unapproved agricultural use, structures over 100 years old that don't meet current building codes. "Wait a minute," Marcus interrupted. "Agricultural use? I have a vegetable garden. Prohibited under Section 12A. This is a residential community, not a farm." Marcus felt his anger rising. "My family has been farming this land for 175 years. Your family doesn't own this land anymore," Victoria said coldly. "The HOA does. You're in violation of your lease agreement." "What lease agreement?" Victoria's smile got wider. "The one you agreed to when you joined the HOA. All residential properties are held in trust by the association to maintain property values and community standards." Marcus grabbed the papers and started reading. Legal language filled page after page, but the meaning was clear. Somehow the HOA claimed ownership of his family's land. "This is insane. You can't just steal someone's property." "We're not stealing anything. We're protecting the community from blight." Victoria gestured at his house. "This eyesore brings down property values for everyone. You have 30 days to bring everything into compliance or face eviction." "Eviction? From my own land?" "From HOA property that you're leasing. The terms are all in the paperwork." After they left, Marcus called every lawyer in the phone book. Most were too expensive. The few he could afford all said the same thing: fighting an HOA was expensive and usually hopeless. "These associations have unlimited money and teams of lawyers," one attorney explained. "Unless you've got a smoking gun, they'll bleed you dry in court." Marcus hung up feeling defeated. Then he remembered something his grandfather had always said: "When someone tries to steal what's yours, you dig deeper and fight harder." Time to start digging. Marcus spent the weekend in his grandfather's attic, going through boxes of old documents. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, property deeds going back to the 1800s. His family had kept everything. In a wooden chest he found what he was looking for: the original land grant from 1847. The faded document showed that the U.S. government had granted William Hartwell 640 acres of wilderness to establish settlement and bring civilization to the frontier. But that wasn't the interesting part. The interesting part was a clause Marcus had never noticed before. Said land grant includes mineral rights, water rights, and governmental authority for establishment of municipal services as needed for community development. Marcus read it 3 times. Governmental authority? What did that mean? Monday morning he drove to the county courthouse. I need to research the founding documents for the town of Hartwell Valley, he told the clerk. The whole town? That's a lot of paperwork. What specifically are you looking for? I want to know who founded it and what authority they had. The clerk pulled up records on her computer. Hartwell Valley was incorporated as a township in 1852. Founded by William Hartwell. That's interesting, same last name as yours. He was my great-great-grandfather. What does founded mean exactly? Well, back then, if you had a federal land grant and established a settlement, you could petition the territorial government for township status. That gave you authority to create local laws, collect taxes, establish services. Marcus felt his pulse quickening. So William Hartwell was like the first mayor. More than that. According to this, he was granted perpetual authority as township founder. That's pretty unusual. What does perpetual authority mean? The clerk looked more carefully at her screen. It means the founding family retains certain governmental powers permanently. I've never seen anything quite like this. She printed out copies of everything. You might want to talk to someone who specializes in municipal law. This is way above my pay grade. Marcus found Professor Janet Mills at the State University Law School. She specialized in 19th century municipal governance and agreed to look at his documents. This is remarkable, she said after studying everything. Your ancestor didn't just found a town, he was granted quasi-sovereign authority by the territorial government. What does that mean in plain English? It means William Hartwell and his descendants have governmental powers that supersede local authorities. You're not just a resident of Hartwell Valley, legally speaking you're the hereditary governor. Marcus stared at her. That sounds insane. It is insane by modern standards. But in 1847, the federal government was desperate to encourage Western settlement. They granted extraordinary powers to people willing to establish communities in dangerous frontier areas. She pulled up more research on her computer. Look at this territorial statute from 1851. Founding families retain perpetual authority over municipal governance, taxation, and land use within established township boundaries. So what can I actually do with this authority? Professor Mills smiled. Legally? You can override any local ordinance, dissolve municipal corporations within the township, and even levy your own taxes. You're essentially a one-person government. What about the HOA? An HOA is just a private corporation. You have the authority to dissolve it tomorrow if you want. Marcus felt like he was dreaming. Are you sure about this? The law is clear. These 19th century land grants have never been revoked. Most people don't know about them because the founding families died out or moved away. But you're still here and you have legitimate legal authority that dates back 175 years. How do I use it? Professor Mills grinned. Very carefully. And very publicly. Marcus spent the next week preparing. Professor Mills helped him draft the legal documents, while Marcus researched every detail of the HOA's operations. What he found made him furious. The HOA had been systematically buying up properties from longtime residents using legal harassment and impossible fines. They'd forced out 12 families in 3 years, then resold their homes to wealthy outsiders for huge profits. Victoria Ashworth personally owned the development company that bought the foreclosed properties. She was running a sophisticated scam, used the HOA to force out original residents, then buy their land cheap and sell it expensive. Now she was coming for the biggest prize, Marcus's 47 acres in the heart of town. Time to shut her down. Marcus called a press conference for Friday afternoon at the town square. He invited the local newspaper, the mayor, the city council, and everyone who'd received notices from the HOA. Victoria Ashworth showed up with her lawyers, expecting to humiliate Marcus publicly. She was in for a surprise. A crowd of about 50 people gathered in the town square. Victoria stood with her arms crossed, smirking as Marcus approached the microphone. Thank you all for coming, Marcus began. I called this meeting to address the illegal activities of the Hartwell Valley Estates Homeowners Association. This is ridiculous, Victoria interrupted. Mr. Hartwell is facing eviction for multiple covenant violations. This publicity stunt won't change that. Actually, Mrs. Ashworth, you're wrong about several things. First, let me introduce myself properly. Marcus pulled out a folder of documents. My name is Marcus Hartwell, great-great-grandson of William Hartwell, who founded this town in 1847. According to territorial law still in effect today, I am the hereditary municipal authority for Hartwell Valley Township. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Victoria's smirk faded. What does that mean? Called out someone from the audience. It means I have governmental powers that supersede all local corporations and associations within the township boundaries, including fraudulent HOAs. Victoria stepped forward. This is nonsense. The HOA is legally incorporated and has full authority over its member properties. No, Mrs. Ashworth, it doesn't. Marcus held up another document. This is an official territorial statute from 1851, confirmed by the State Attorney General's office yesterday. It grants founding families perpetual governmental authority within their established townships. Professor Mills stood up from the crowd. I can confirm that Mr. Hartwell's legal authority is legitimate and has never been revoked. Victoria's lawyers were frantically whispering to each other, checking their phones. Furthermore, Marcus continued, I've discovered that the HOA's incorporation documents contain multiple fraudulent elements. You claimed authority over properties that were never legally transferred to the association. That's a lie. Is it? Marcus pulled out more papers. Here's the deed to my property, recorded in 1847 and updated through 5 generations of inheritance. Never once transferred to any HOA. Yet you claim ownership and are trying to evict me. The crowd was getting restless. Several people shouted questions about their own properties. But here's the really interesting part, Marcus said, raising his voice. Mrs. Ashworth's development company has purchased 12 properties from families forced out by fraudulent HOA violations. She's been running a criminal enterprise. Victoria went pale. I've done nothing illegal. Haven't you? Marcus nodded to someone in the crowd. Detective Ray Morrison from the county sheriff's office stepped forward. Victoria Ashworth, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and racketeering. As Victoria was handcuffed, Marcus addressed the crowd. Using my authority as hereditary municipal governor of Hartwell Valley Township, I hereby dissolve the Hartwell Valley Estates Homeowners Association. All fines and penalties are void. All forced property transfers are under investigation. The crowd erupted in cheers. Victoria's arrest was just the beginning. The FBI launched a full investigation into HOA fraud schemes across 3 states. They found that Victoria had used the same playbook in multiple communities: create fake violations, harass residents with impossible fines, then buy their properties through shell companies. Her total illegal profits exceeded $12 million. The local media picked up the story, then national news. Town founder's descendant destroys corrupt HO, made headlines across the country. Marcus found himself doing interviews on television, explaining how ordinary families could fight back against abusive HOAs. The key is knowing your rights, he told a CNN reporter. Most people assume HOAs have unlimited power, but they're just private corporations. They can be challenged, dissolved, and prosecuted like any other criminal enterprise. Legal experts confirmed that Marcus's case was unique but legitimate. Several other states began investigating whether similar 19th-century land grants might still be in effect. With the HOA dissolved, Hartwell Valley began to recover. Families who'd been driven out started moving back. Property values stabilized as the artificial manipulation ended. Marcus used his newfound authority carefully. He established a genuine community council with elected representatives, transparent budgets, and actual accountability to residents. My ancestor founded this town to give people freedom and opportunity, Marcus explained at the first council meeting. That's what we're going back to. The council focused on real community needs: better roads, upgraded utilities, support for local businesses. None of the petty harassment and aesthetic control that had characterized Victoria's regime. Marcus also established a legal defense fund to help other communities fight corrupt HOAs. Donations poured in from across the country. 6 months after Victoria's arrest, Marcus was finishing the restoration of his family's farmhouse. The roof was fixed, the paint was fresh, and his vegetable garden was thriving. His cousin Danny stopped by one evening. I owe you an apology, Danny said. I thought you were crazy to keep this old place. And now I think you're the smartest guy in the family. You saved the whole town. Marcus looked out over the land his ancestor had settled 175 years ago. I just protected what was already ours. The local newspaper did a follow-up story about the transformation of Hartwell Valley. Property values had recovered completely. New businesses were opening. Young families were moving in, attracted by the affordable housing and genuine community spirit. Most importantly, longtime residents felt safe in their own homes again. Marcus's victory inspired similar challenges to corrupt HOAs nationwide. Law schools began teaching courses on historical property rights. State legislatures passed stronger protections for homeowners. Victoria Ashworth was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $12 million in restitution. Her properties were sold at auction, with proceeds going to her victims. Several of her associates were also prosecuted. The entire criminal network collapsed. Marcus received hundreds of letters from homeowners who'd been inspired to fight their own HOA battles. Many included copies of old deeds and family documents, hoping to find their own legal ammunition. "You've given people hope," Professor Mills told him. "Most HOA victims feel powerless. You showed them that power can be challenged." A year after his victory, Marcus was elected to the county commission on a platform of government accountability and property rights protection. He used his position to strengthen laws against HOA abuse and created resources for homeowners facing harassment. The old farmhouse became a symbol of resistance to corporate bullying. Marcus gave tours to school groups, explaining how ordinary people could stand up for their rights. "My great-great-grandfather came here with nothing but determination and a government land grant," he would tell visitors. "He built something good that lasted 175 years. When someone tried to steal it, we fought back with the law." The family cemetery behind the house now included a new monument, in honor of all families who refused to surrender their heritage to corporate greed. On the anniversary of Victoria's arrest, the town held its first annual Founders' Day celebration. Hundreds of people gathered to celebrate the community's history and freedom from HOA tyranny. Marcus stood at the podium where he'd first revealed his legal authority, looking out at families enjoying food, music, and the simple pleasure of living without fear. "My ancestor William Hartwell couldn't have imagined that his 1847 land grant would one day be used to fight corporate criminals," Marcus said. "But he understood that freedom requires constant vigilance." The crowd cheered as Marcus raised a glass of homemade cider from his family's apple trees. "To all the families who refuse to be bullied. To everyone who fights for what's right. And to the truth that power belongs to the people, not the corporations." That evening, Marcus sat on his restored front porch, watching the sunset over land his family had protected for nearly 2 centuries. His phone buzzed with messages from homeowners around the country, sharing their own victories against corrupt HOAs. The HOA had tried to evict Marcus from his own land, thinking he was just another victim they could bulldoze. They forgot that his family didn't just live in Hartwell Valley, they owned it, founded it, and had legal authority going back to the territorial government. Final score: Victoria Ashworth, 8 years in prison, $12 million fine. Marcus Hartwell saved his home, his town, and inspired a national movement. Sometimes the little guy wins because he's not actually the little guy. Sometimes the little guy is the hereditary governor.